Golden Sun is a wonderful and charming series of games, and it's no wonder why people want there to be a new entry in a series so beloved. But in case you need a refresher, god damn it. It's obviously been a while since Dark Dawn. In fact, it was the last proper RPG experience that team ever created. There haven't even been so much as concrete hints that Golden Sun or any other original RPGs will ever come from that same studio in the future. As someone who knew so little about Golden Sun until I actually played it, the fact that this series has been left hanging on an unresolved cliffhanger for a long time made me curious as to why it never got a follow-up. In order to find such answers, I think it's important to ask some questions of the history of Golden Sun and Camelot Software Planning, the studio that created it. Well, long before Camelot was Camelot, they used to be called Sonic Software Planning. Originally, they developed games for Sega's console platforms. Their claim to fame was the creation of the Shining series of RPGs. Shining received its first game in 1991 with Shining in the Darkness on the Sega Genesis, and a year later, the game would receive a spiritual successor with Shining Force. Wait, you mean that Shining Force? Oh my goodness, my favorite Genesis game! Yeah, look at that, that's Hiroyuki Takahashi in the credits. I had no idea that people responsible for its creation would go on to make Golden Sun. It makes so much sense in hindsight. Shining would continue to receive new entries on various Sega platforms over the years. But by 1994, Sonic Software Planning was already beginning to distance themselves from Sega due to a growing lack of faith with the company. This was around the time they adopted the new name of Camelot Software Planning, and even got a few original games released for the Sony PlayStation, such as Beyond the Beyond and Everybody's Golf. After the full release of Shining Force 3, Camelot officially parted ways with Sega. And it was not much longer until Camelot came into a partnership with Nintendo, beginning with Mario Golf on the Nintendo 64, and not long after followed by Mario Tennis. Yes, that means that Camelot is in fact responsible for the creation of Waluigi. You're welcome. After partnering with Nintendo, Camelot was given another task to start on. The Nintendo 64 struggled against its rival the PlayStation during that console generation, in no small part due to the lack of RPGs within the console's library. So Camelot, with its experienced history in the genre, made for a natural fit to create some worthy competition. This marked the conceptualization of Golden Sun, but because the next generation of Nintendo platforms would soon be coming, Camelot then scrapped their work and focused instead on the Game Boy Advance. While it's a shame the Nintendo 64 lost out on a potentially great RPG for a system that really lacked in those experiences, the console shift onto the Game Boy Advance was for the best. After all, it wasn't the first time it happened. Or the second. Even then, Golden Sun wasn't technically the only RPG the studio developed for Nintendo. The handheld Mario sports games were also RPGs in their own right, as the characters slowly build their skills and improved over time, and even had explorable hubs not too dissimilar to the overworld exploration as seen in traditional RPGs. The GBA titles even used the same game engine as Golden Sun. I find that incredibly amusing. Although after the release of The Lost Age, the future for Golden Sun became complicated. In the following years, much of the key staff left to pursue other endeavors. While it was always in the plan to create more Golden Sun games, it was felt that perhaps the new staff wasn't ready to be involved in such a big undertaking. But the Takahashi brothers were continually enthusiastic about creating more Golden Sun games. Eventually, the day did come for Golden Sun to arise once again, and in 2010 came Dark Dawn. After that, Golden Sun's fate would be left up in the air. It was clear that Dark Dawn was meant to be the first part of its own story arc. The fact that Dark Dawn ends on a cliffhanger that establishes what the next story could be about says it all in terms of intention from the developers. But with Dark Dawn being a commercial flop, those ambitions were at the very least put on hold, but more likely dashed entirely. The most concrete information we currently have regarding a possible Golden Sun 4 is a quote from Hiroyuki Takahashi during an interview with Nintendo Gamer. A big reason for us making RPGs comes from the requests of all the people who have enjoyed our RPGs in the past. Perhaps if there are enough Nintendo users asking for another game in the Golden Sun series, then this will naturally lead to the development of such a game. While this quote does inspire some hope, I do think it's important to note this was originally said in 2012, making it 9 years as of this video's production without anything that has resulted from this. 9 years, especially in the video game industry, is a long time. It's possible that fan demand may be all that was needed for Golden Sun in 2012, but now in 2021, could be irrelevant for any new Golden Sun developments. This is not to say Golden Sun 4 is impossible. For all we know, perhaps Golden Sun projects were prototyped for the 3DS, or possibly Wii U and Switch, but history so far seems to tell us that active development has never been considered. It could also be that Camelot views themselves in a similar position as to where they were between The Lost Age and Dark Dawn. It's only rather recently the studio has finally started working on high-definition gaming projects with Mario Tennis Ultra Smash for the Wii U. Ultra Smash was widely panned upon release for lacking in content, and didn't have any ambition to truly evolve Mario Tennis for a new era. While Mario Tennis Aces and Mario Golf Super Rush have had better overall reception, many are still dissatisfied with the final states of the game. While this is speculation on my part, I do get the impression that the Golden Sun series is very important to Camelot. Regardless of how you may personally feel about the final quality of Dark Dawn, the fact that they waited so long to develop the game is a sign of their desire to not half-ass new entries in that series. I would even offer an explanation that perhaps the reason Golden Sun has not been seen for such a long time is that Camelot wants as much experience with HD development as possible before pursuing something with such a grand scope as a brand new RPG adventure. After all, they missed their chance with the 3DS. Now Golden Sun 4 will have to be developed for an HD console. Especially after Dark Dawn's mixed reception, perhaps they've become more hesitant about creating a new Golden Sun title unless they know it can be given justice. The other easy explanation is once again Dark Dawn's poor sales figures, and perhaps Nintendo has not greenlit a new Golden Sun game for that fact alone. That being said, there's no reason to lose hope yet. At this point, the Nintendo Switch has now received both a new Mario Tennis and Mario Golf game. Assuming that the Switch's proper successor is still a few years away, what else would Camelot work on aside from a new Golden Sun? There does seem to be some interest at the company in regards to Golden Sun. In Mario Tennis Aces, there was an adventure mode area called the Temple of Basque, but in Japan it was called Soru Shindan, or Soul Sanctum. Don't take this as anything more than a fun nod. After all, Camelot has always been a pretty self-referential studio in their previous works. But any acknowledgement is better than nothing, right? Not to mention, Mario Golf Super Rush has a dedicated single-player adventure mode with an RPG leveling system, just like the handheld sports titles from the past. Could this be Camelot trying to polish up their RPG skills before trying again with a dedicated adventure? But it is also worth pondering if Camelot is capable of developing a new project with such a huge undertaking. The recent endeavors of the company admittedly don't inspire a lot of confidence. Mario Golf Super Rush had an underwhelming launch, with the general consensus feeling the game lacked polish and was missing features. While the COVID-19 pandemic should absolutely be considered as a factor for troubled development, the studio just hasn't demonstrated it's ready to create a new Golden Sun worthy of the fans' expectations. Although there's nothing wrong with having a bit of hope. So while I'm still wide-eyed, optimistic, and can believe good exists in the world, I also just want to believe in a reality where a new Golden Sun is coming soon. So can Golden Sun really succeed if it comes back? Oh, no question it can. I don't think it has to try that hard either. The demographic is already there, and RPGs do so well on the Switch. But this series has been out of people's minds for a while, and these games are all connected in their stories. So I would say start by giving everyone a refresher. Remake the entire trilogy as one definitive collection. Obviously, Golden Sun 1 and 2 used the same engine, and while Golden Sun 3 was designed for the DS, it didn't have any design elements that utilized the handheld's capabilities, so theoretically they could all use one unified engine. And I think it's fine if they're faithful remakes. These games are really good as they are, and the idea is to get more people interested in Golden Sun. I do think it's worth noting that Advance Wars 1 and 2 are also getting a remake for the Switch later in the year. The Wars series has been considered to be in a similar position to Golden Sun in terms of being a dormant IP in Nintendo's back catalog. Maybe if it does well, Nintendo will consider providing that same treatment to other series. Perhaps they have another Game Boy Advance duology that people are excited about. While I wouldn't recommend getting the new Advance Wars on the tangential possibility that maybe they'll do the same for Golden Sun, I do think it's worth paying attention to. I would even settle for just straight ports of the original versions. But the reason I think they should be remade is to give them that extra oomph. It's going to be a more exciting prospect if someone who hasn't played these games before can experience new and improved versions of them. And it's just another reason for fans to come support it if they can see their favorite moments reinterpreted. Because while I love all the Golden Sun games, I do think there are a number of changes a remake, as well as an eventual Golden Sun 4, could greatly benefit from. One change that could really go a long way as a selling point is... Number 1. Stop using silent protagonists. This is something I just never liked about Golden Sun. Now, I don't mind silent protagonists at all, but I do have a problem with taking a character with an interesting background or defined personality and arbitrarily making them silent. I know it's supposed to be immersing because you can decide the main character's personality, but if handled poorly, it can actually negatively impact the storytelling. And if I'm being honest, I think that Golden Sun suffers greatly from this. I think that Isaac has a lot of potential as a written character. He's got spiky blonde hair, blue eyes, and dresses like a brave knight, sent by basically God on a mission to stop the world's destruction. He's meant to be portrayed as a hero. It's important to the story for Isaac, and by extension the audience, to believe his quest is a righteous one. After all, his role as a protagonist is sort of a red herring. Perhaps this can inform him to be a rather arrogant zealot. Perhaps the reason Isaac never hears out the motivations of Felix for so long is due to the fact that he refuses to, believing there couldn't possibly be a reason that justifies violating the Wise One's orders. But when he eventually learns about the real reason for the lighthouses, he'll have to unravel how he might have caused more destruction in the long run if he succeeded. Perhaps he's hesitant on which path is the right one to take. I mean, we kind of get a little of that at the end of The Lost Age, but that also comes at the cost of what Felix could have brought to the table. Felix is someone we aren't meant to trust given the limited information he's presented with in Golden Sun. But playing The Lost Age confirms he's actually a nice guy underneath that maybe doesn't want others to get involved in a dangerous quest. Is he remorseful of some of the actions he's done to see his goals realized? In what ways was he rebellious towards Saturos and Minardi? Did he ever really trust them? How does he respond when he becomes the leader of the group? So much of what could have made Felix an absolute standout character has to be dumped because he's a silent protagonist. And even Matthew, I think, should be given more agency as well. I mean, he almost has some lines of dialogue in Dark Dawn. He's already characterized as someone with few words but strong convictions. And the different emotional responses can result in some funny moments. But wouldn't it be great if they actually let him talk? The kid's got kind of a potty mouth. Let Matthew say "F you cowards!" And silent protagonists are just something that are more difficult to get away with in the modern gaming landscape. When characters are vocally talking left and right, it only sticks out more when one of them doesn't. If Golden Sun is to get remade, it would more likely than not have some kind of voice acting, and thus face the same issue. In fact, it would only do more to break the illusion when characters who didn't talk suddenly will. At the very least, I hope that Golden Sun 4 will break this trend with whoever its protagonist turns out to be. After all, I think being a little less traditional is what the series needs, especially as it ties into my next point. Number 2, take some risks for a new game. I think that the next evolution of Golden Sun needs to do something more than the series has attempted in the past. After all, Dark Dawn felt very similar to the previous games, despite how many times it tried to deviate. So I think that Golden Sun 4 should try something risky to stand out from the rest of the series. And by taking a risk, that doesn't mean it needs to be an action RPG instead or something. That would be a little too dramatic of a shift, but something should be there as a big change to show people who aren't fans of the series that it's willing to evolve. I feel the next logical progression is to give the games a more action-adventure feeling. Perhaps a third-person camera system not dissimilar to Dragon Quest XI. It could broaden the scope of the puzzles. In fact, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild I think is a great demonstration that shows what Synergy might be capable of in this new style. I might be asking a lot from Camelot here. I apologize, but I am just dreaming. Number 3. Just give us a moment where Isaac and Jenna are happy together. So obviously my biggest complaint about Dark Dawn was how the old party members are just missing in action for pretty much the whole runtime. And while we at least got Isaac and Garrett on screen, I was so disappointed by how I felt baited thinking we were eventually going to see everyone at some point. But of all the missing characters, it was Jenna that left me the most bummed out. Believe it or not, Jenna is actually my favorite Golden Sun character. She's fiery, determined, has a cute design, and despite having so many horrible things happen to her, she always comes out of it with the best of herself and moves forward. I admit that I smiled a bit when The Lost Age teases a romantic connection between her and Isaac. Then it made me really excited when I found out they did end up getting together, but then I was so crushed that Dark Dawn does nothing with that. So can we just get one moment of them being happy together? Like, maybe it's them dancing in a post-credits scene, or she kisses Isaac and Matthew on the cheek when they return from the lookout cabin. Or just have them hold hands at least. I just want my heart tickled with good vibes, knowing that they still love each other. God, I'm pathetic. Number 4. Conclude the story of Weird. Games can still take place in that world. In fact, I would almost prefer that. It's kind of a rare thing when RPG series have this continuous story. Games where you can see the direct effects and consequences of the previous ventures in saving the world. But Isaac, Felix, Matthew, Alex, whoever else, finish their stories. 0 loose ends. After all, Dark Dawn is the evidence as to why cliffhanger endings are probably not the best idea. And that's not to say we should never see Weird again. I think there would at least be a little interest in a prequel story that covers the events as to why alchemy was sealed in the first place. Otherwise, a story could also be done in the far future with the development of new technology that begins phasing out the need for using synergy. And hey, the water that flows off the edge of the world has gotta go somewhere, right? Where exactly? But I digress. If Golden Sun 5 happens, then hopefully it can be created in a way where people don't need to know the previous story in any way. And if it has to do that without being set on Weird, then so be it. At the very least, I just want Golden Sun 4 to wrap things up completely. Make it the end of the saga, full stop. Whatever grand story was had about this multi-part narrative that spans over however many games, maybe expedite that process in the next game. That way, if we ever find ourselves in a situation where it's been another 12 years and we still don't have Golden Sun 5, then at least we don't have a cliffhanger ending to worry about. Those were just a few things that I think could be done to make the future of Golden Sun brighter than it has ever been. This series is just brimming with potential, and I would love to see what could be done with the IP if it was given a chance to be revitalized. I only just played these games for the first time recently, and I fell in love with them hard and fast. They are some of my favorite games in what is my favorite video game genre, and I know there are others that would be just as passionate about this series if only they had the chance to experience them as well. People need to know how brilliant Golden Sun is. Going back to Hiroyuki Takahashi's quote from 2012, "If fan support is what's needed for a new Golden Sun to see the light of day, then consider me a fan." On the day this video has been uploaded, it is Golden Sunday, a yearly event that fans of these games host in order to drum up some hype and attention for the series. But this particular day isn't just any ordinary event. It's the goldest of Golden Sundays even, as today is not only Sunday, but also August 1st of 2021, making it the 20th anniversary since Golden Sun: The Broken Seal's original Japanese release. And now Golden Sun fans across the world are using today as a chance for a rallying cry, to show how much demand there is for the series to return. I created this video series because I wanted to express how much these games have meant to me, and I would absolutely love this series to keep going. So let's see that Golden Sun rise once more.